Well, in a major reversal, President Trump has decided to postpone his campaign promise to move the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Earlier today, he signed a waiver. That waiver keeps the embassy in Tel Aviv for the time being.
The White House released a statement saying, quote, while President Trump delayed moving the embassy, no one should consider this step to be in any way a retreat from the president's strong support for Israel.
In an interview with the Times of Israel, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that while he appreciated the kind words coming from the White House, keeping U.S. embassy outside Jerusalem, quote, drives peace further away by helping keep alive the Palestinian fantasy that the Jewish people and the Jewish state have no connection to Jerusalem.
Amir Tibon covers Washington, D.C. for Israel's Haaretz newspaper. Amir, thank you so much for joining us. So we know moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem was one of President Trump's biggest campaign promises. How do you think this decision affects him with those who supported him based on that promise?
Well, obviously, I think people who supported him, whether it's in the U.S. Jewish community on the more right-wing parts of it, or maybe people in the more religious Christian right-wing communities that were expecting to see this decision, are disappointed. But I want to point out something. It's true that President Trump made a campaign promise to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. He's not the first president to make this promise, and he's also not the first president to break this promise once he gets into office and realizes the complexities. But we have to say, President Trump also made another campaign promise a number of times, which is to try to bring a peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. He said it during the Republican primaries and later during the general election that he thinks he can bring this peace deal. He calls it the ultimate deal. And I think it would be more fair to say that maybe he just realized too late that two of his campaign promises are actually contradicting each other, because if you want to get the peace deal, then you can't just walk in there and on day one of your administration, and also 6 months later, move the embassy to Jerusalem, which is something that would automatically create tensions with the Arab world and the Palestinians and decrease the chances to get a peace agreement.
Yeah.
So that's why eventually this decision was reached.
That seems like a very big goal for President Trump. He wants to get some sort of a peace deal reached. You tweeted out earlier, Amir, that this is the first time Trump will pay a political price for trying to get Israel-Palestinian peace. If he's serious, there will be many more. What do you mean by that?
Well, obviously, now Trump is going to get some criticism from the Israeli government. We're already seeing the statement by Prime Minister Netanyahu and some ministers from the Likud party, the right-wing party currently ruling Israel, that are already saying this is disappointing. And I think we'll also see some of Trump's supporters in the United States saying, you know, this is not what we signed up for. We expected him to do it. But if Trump is really serious about getting this peace deal, then this is just the first instance in which he will have to disappoint some of his supporters. Because at the end of the day, if you want to get an Israeli-Palestinian peace deal, and Trump is talking about even a larger deal involving other Arab states in the region, so as Trump himself has said, both sides are going to have to make concessions. It's not going to be easy on anyone. And if he's serious about this, if he's really going to push for it, then more of his supporters on the more right-wing parts of the Israeli political spectrum or U.S. Jewish community are going to be disappointed naturally, because it will involve some steps that are not on the agenda of the current Israeli government.
And Amir, we know, as you're talking about Benjamin Netanyahu saying that he, was, quote, disappointed by President Trump's decision. What kind of impact do you think this is going to have on their relationship? As we saw in the overseas trip, they certainly became quite good friends, it seemed.
Yeah, actually, they both like to say that they've known each other for many years and they are close friends and they like working together. And I still think that for Prime Minister Netanyahu, this is an easier relationship than the one he had with the previous president, with Mr. Obama, or with President Bill Clinton in the 1990s. But I do think that, again, if Trump really is going to go for a peace deal here and start really putting pressure on both sides to move, sooner or later he will have a clash with Netanyahu, because it's just inevitable. Netanyahu right now is leading the most right-wing government that Israel has seen in decades. That government is not committed to a peace agreement. It doesn't support the idea of a two-state solution. And if this is the route that Trump is going to choose, so sooner or later the two of them will have to collide. And I think right now Netanyahu is trying to put out a message that says we are disappointed with this decision, but Trump is still a friend of Israel and we still respect him and look forward to working with him. We'll see how much that message stands if in a few months from now they keep clashing on these issues of the peace process again and again.
Amir Tibon, great to have you here from our Washington bureau. Thanks, Amir.
Thanks for having me.